Clint, we've been in business a year together, right? A lot of hurdles, a lot of battle scars. What do you think? What's your biggest takeaway after being in business for a year?
I think it's just, how we like to be treated, right? We got a third partner, Tyler. He responds to criticism a lot differently than I do. And same with you, right? Like when I'm being a little bitch, I like you to tell me when I'm being a little bitch. Tyler hates that. He goes in a shell and he doesn't like to be talked that way. So I think it's just learning how each other responds to different levels of criticism, accountability, everything like that. Because that's one thing we do well, is we keep each other accountable, make sure we're rowing in the right direction.
I like it. What do you think our biggest failure has been in the past 12 months since we've been together?
Biggest failure, man, I don't think anything's a failure because you get a lesson. When you take a loss, you get a lesson out of it. So I don't think we've had any major failures. I think that we've definitely got some battle scars, but I think we've definitely learned from it and made corrective action really quick, and that's probably why we're sitting here today and looking at a pretty successful business.
We've had some negative months though, haven't we?
Definitely had some negative months. Definitely, had some nights where we're worrying about, keeping the lights on. But, the game when you're in this business is to avoid game over. You say that all the time, avoid game over. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. What about you? What do you think has been the most negative thing that's happened since you've been here?
Man, like you said, I try not to look at anything as negativity. There's a great YouTube video, Jocko Good. If you've never watched that, go just Google Jocko Good. And I think that's how we have to look at it. I think, the areas of opportunity or big failures or challenges that we have, I think is just ensuring we get the right people on the team and knowing that and making sure that we're selective in our hiring. We're fortunate to be in Atlanta. There's a lot of great talent here. We're fortunate to be able to recruit some people that are very talented. And it's just, I think had we really grasped at that early and realized that we have got to make our core competency hiring and made it a priority. I think, look, we're 12 months into this and we're just starting to beat the drum. Like, we have to be world-class at hiring. I mean, if we would have been or had created that narrative 12 months ago, back when we first signed up together in August, I think we would be light years ahead of where we are now.
Yeah, 100%. And you can tell, each new class, because like every month it seems like there's just a new class that comes on. Every month, that level of people coming in the door is exponentially higher. And it's kind of been like a snowball effect, because once you start getting really good people, they tell all their good friends that are good people, and it starts coming through the door on a regular basis. And so when you came over here, you hadn't been in the Atlanta market before.
No.
When we partnered up, what has been the things you've liked and maybe disliked about Atlanta?
Well, I don't like to drive. It takes 6 hours to get here. But outside of that, Atlanta's great. I think there's a lot of talent here, right? And I think that the cool thing about Atlanta is the population, right? It gives us the ability to do a massive amount of transactions. I think there's over 6 million people in Atlanta, right? Before, I was in 10, 11 different markets. The average population was like 300,000-400,000, which limits your housing stock, which limits your ability to transact at a super high volume without having to go outward into other markets, right? But here in Atlanta, it's so deep. There's so much housing stock, population's so huge that I think we can focus in one specific geographical area for the sake of Atlanta and go really deep. I know that we'll be able to do 100, 150 transactions, maybe more, right? And when you can have that singular focus in one market and just begin to build on these ancillary divisions, like we're building out realtor relations, we're building out, portfolio acquisitions, and just have one home base with a great talent pool and a higher median house price, it creates a lot of focus, a lot of synergy, and allows you to get really good and go really deep in one area because you have the depth, right? When you're in a small market, say 300,000 people, you're in a 6-foot pool, right? It's only so deep you can go. But when you're in a pool like the size of Atlanta, I mean, that's a 24-foot pool, right? You can go deep and you can go wide, which I believe creates additional stability.
So, Rhen, we have a lot of disagreements as business partners. We talked about this being like a marriage. What do we do when we disagree?
Get out in the backyard, put some boxing gloves on, and slug it out the old-fashioned way.
I like it.
Who wins?
Me, of course.
No, man. I think in any partnership you're going to have disagreements. I think you got to be honest, right, and be able to have an environment where you can voice your concerns. There's a level of trust where if you feel a certain type of way and I feel a certain type of way, which happens all the time, that you're able to approach each other and talk it out, right? And one partner or the other partner doesn't always have to win. And I think that's where you and I get along very well, is we're both open-minded. And I don't have to win every battle. I don't have to die on every hill. And the same with you. And, you know, there's going to be friction. There has been a ton of friction in the past. There'll be a ton of friction moving forward. But, you know, I think what's good about both you and I is, man, we're good humans. And I think we understand that we have to do what's right for the company. And I think I know at least I'm humble enough to admit when I'm wrong, and you sometimes, and we just work through that, right? So I think it's trust that we both want the right things, and we both want what's best for not only each other but for the company.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with partnerships and people that struggle with partnerships is they're scared to have those hard conversations. When we have that feeling that we need to voice our opinion, we voice it immediately. And we're not going to let it drag out and build up and build resentment over time. And I think so many partnerships end because they don't have those hard conversations on the forefront. You know, we do something every quarter that we have that dock talk. You know, we go up on our dock, and have a realignment conversation. Make sure, you know, we're marching in the same order. Make sure we're rowing in the same direction, and having those hard conversations. Make sure, you know, from a long-term perspective, we all agree what we want out of this. And I think that's super important. And that's just why partnerships fail so many times. So many people aren't focused on, you know, having those hard conversations on the forefront.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people don't understand that subconsciously resentment does build, right? You know, if somebody feels like, hey, I went into a conversation, I felt some type of way, and I didn't get what I wanted, right? First, you have to realize it's not about what you want. It's about what's best for the company, what's best for the partnership. Second to that, you have to let that resentment go, because it truly builds subconsciously, and before long, after battle after battle after battle that you lose, you just become defeated. And you either stop going to have the argument, right? Because there's no sense in disagreeing, because you can go and disagree and argue till your face is blue, but you know you're not going to win, right? So that happens, and then conflict dissolves kind of organically. And man, if there's not constructive conflict, you're not pushing the company forward, right? If you don't have not alternative, but if you don't have differing perspectives, right, then you're just you're blind. You're only seeing out of one eye. Right. So I think it's super critical to have a place or a partnership where you can allow that disagreement and then come to a compromise.
Yeah, I think, you know, when in our weekly executive meeting that we have, I think some of the biggest times we push the company forward is when we've had the biggest arguments and the biggest heated battles. And so many companies don't do that. And, you know, rubbin's racing, right? You're not, you know, it's like the Tom Cruise movie, Days of Thunder, rubbin's racing. And if you're not having that friction, you're probably not moving the company forward. And I think Alex Hormozy says something that I think is just something so true and serves not only marriages, but also business partnerships well. He says, you know, if we don't all agree, we don't move forward. And that's kind of how we handle things as well. And I think it's just super important.
Yeah, and I think it's all. I like if we don't all agree, we don't move forward. But there's going to be things that we don't agree on, right? But you decide and you commit, right? Yep. Whether you agree or not, you know, if you get it wrong, then we come back and we're humble enough to say, hey, we actually got this wrong. You know, in the type of businesses that we're building, there is no freaking franchise manual. Like you go and you buy a Subway, they lay it out page by page. Put the pepperoni on this way. Cook the bread at this temperature. Slice the tomato this way. Man, when you're building businesses like what we are, like there is no model. You have to make it up. It's through trials and tribulations, and yeah, you just kind of figure it out, right?
Yeah. So I think the best thing about working with each other for me, I think it gets me fired up about Rhen is he wakes up in the morning. He's like, "It's Contract Monday. We're ready to go." And man, I'm the same way. I love, you know, hearing that motivational Monday stuff. He's always sending me YouTube videos, always sending quotes, and that stuff fires me up. Versus Tyler Tyler looks at that stuff and he's like, oh gosh, another thing. He just doesn't respond well to it. So I love that about working with Rhen. The worst thing about working with Rhen, it's probably the same thing as well, right? He's sending me the same stuff at midnight when I'm asleep and I'm waking up to it. So I think that's probably the best and the worst stuff about Rhen. What about me, Rhen?
Best thing about working with you is I get to cross you up on the basketball court, right? Get a lot of fulfillment out of that. Just brings a lot of joy to me. Now, I mean, man, I just think you're a good human, Clint. You know, you got a good heart, and it's hard to find people and get to be in business. I've been in some partnerships before that wasn't the case, and when you live in a world like that, an environment like that, it makes you truly appreciate, you know, someone that looks out for you and has your best interests.
100%.
Worst thing about working with you, is you're pretty hard-headed. Pretty hard-headed. You don't listen, right? It's funny. Before Clint and I became partners, I got to work with them a little bit, limited on a consulting basis. And I called him up the other day, and I'm like, man, it's real peculiar to me. Is when you paid me for advice, you listen. And now that I'm your partner, I give you the best advice ever, and you're like, I don't even acknowledge it most of the time. So I think that's pretty funny.
Love it. You know, if I had a recommendation for people going to find a partner, is find people that complement your skill set, right? I think that so many people find another person that's exactly like them, and they go into business partnerships and they don't complement each other well. You know, when me and Tyler first partnered up even before Rhen, you know, me and him couldn't be more polar opposite. Yeah, we had the same core values and similar beliefs, but from an operational standpoint, we couldn't be more polar opposite. You know, I'm a sales guy, not detail oriented at all, just love to drive revenue. Tyler's like an operational wizard, finance wizard, all the stuff that I suck at. And I think Rhen's a little bit a mix of both of us. And I think that just allows us to complement each other really well. And when you have somebody bring in the same skill sets to the table, it just doesn't really work well because you're losing those missing pieces. What about you, Rhen? What do you think?
Man, I think what you got to look for in a partner is the first thing. I think there has to be value alignment, right? You have to be on the same page for what is acceptable to you through business. You know, business can be a great thing or it could be a super shady thing. You know, there's lawsuits filed every single day for shady business practices. So I think there has to be value alignment there. I think it's important that you get all your skeletons out of the closet on the front end, right? Because we all have them. So there's no surprises on the back end, right? I also think that you got to be aligned in what you're trying to accomplish, right? Where do you want to be in 10, 15, 20 years? I think all those are very important. And I think that, you know, you got to get that operating agreement right? So we're not second guessing and going back and thinking through, you know, you just don't want, I've been in it before where we were on a shaky operating agreement and I knew I was going to get fucked. And eventually I did. And I think for the past year, like that rested in the back of my mind the entire time, right? And that weighs on you, you know, when you don't feel like you're on a solid foundation. So I think the value alignment, the skeletons in the closet, I think making sure you're aligned on where you want to grow and take the company is important. And I think making sure that the business structure and entity structure is set up in a very fair way from the beginning.
Yeah, agree 100%. Yeah, you don't want to set up a partnership and not have that operating agreement in place because, you know, me and you both, we've been through some business divorces before, and you know, the good thing is we learned from it, set it up like it could end tomorrow, and we're going to be okay. And you have to set up your business that way.
I think that's an important thing to hit on is like that partnership will end, whether it's through death or divorce, right? And so it's important to take care of that when you're young and in love, and not when you're fighting on the backside, or if some type of tragedy happens and maybe your family has to try to figure it out. So, you know, handle that on the front side, make sure it's legitimate, make sure it's reviewed by attorneys, and then you can set off and sell on your way, and you don't have to worry about, you know, any collateral damage afterwards.
Yeah, and I think, you know, another thing with partnerships is aligning not only from a value standpoint, but also a vision standpoint, right? You know, I think one thing that we do a good job here is thinking big, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people limit themselves by their beliefs, but me and you, we're always talking about, hey, we can be $100 million a year company.
Will be.
Yeah, exactly, will be. And there's not a lot of people that think, oh, this wholesale company could be a $100 million company. Not a lot of people believe that, but we know it can happen. If
100%.
we have time, patience, and get 1% better every day, it can happen. And so many people limit themselves on what they can accomplish. I think the way that me and Rhen hold each other accountable is we just call each other out immediately if we're slacking off, right?
Yeah.
And it could be in anything, right? It could be from business, personal,
The gym.
Yeah. Rhen, texts me twice a week that I'm getting fat and my triceps aren't looking good. And so yeah, I think we're again going back to those hard conversations. We just have them quickly and often.
Early and often. Early
Yep.
and often. I think it's easy to hold somebody accountable when you care about them, right? I think I was having a conversation with a sales rep yesterday, in fact, and it was not an easy conversation. And I think, he told me at the end, he was like, I know you probably didn't want to call and have this conversation with me today. And I'm like, He's like, but I know you care, right? And when you truly care and you know what what their potential is and what they can do, it makes it easier to have those conversations.
100%. Well, I think wealthy means to me that I'm covered financially and pretty much I can do what I want when I want. Living life on my terms. That's what wealthy means to me. What about you, Rhen?
Boosie Badass says, I'm rich. Wealthy means rich. No, I'm just kidding. I think, it's having a life, doing what you want when you want to do it without the financial constraints. I told my wife the other day, she was like, how much is enough, right? How much money is enough money, Rhen? Like, when are you going to quit working like this? And I told her, I think it's very simple. It's like, I'm never going to quit working, right? It's just hardwired into me. But I think where I'm trying to get to is when I can do deals when I want to do deals, not when I have to do deals.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, it's not necessarily about the money, right? I obviously I like money and it makes life easier, but for me, it's about what the money represents, and that's winning, right? Because that's the thing I like to do more than anything is I like to win. I'm one of the most competitive people I feel like on the planet, and when it's really the money is just a byproduct of success, and to me success is winning and being able to do what I want when I want. And I'm like you, I ain't never gonna stop doing deals. I ain't gonna never stop doing business because it's a game. Business is the ultimate game, and I want to continue to win at it.
I do think that it's wealth is it's a tricky word, right? It's a matter of perspective, but I think it's more than about money. I think you can be physically wealthy, you can be spiritually wealthy, you can be, financially wealthy, and I think that money is a tool that hopefully, at least for me, allows me to help people and do better. Right? The more money I have, the more the people that I can help, and so I want to be wealthy and happy in all aspects of life, not just I know a ton of people that have more money than they could ever spend and they're miserable, right? I don't want to be that, right? I want to be fulfilled, and I think having wealth, if you do it the right way, can create a lot of fulfillment or it can create a lot of misery, and you have to be intentional in making sure that you're using your wealth for the betterment of not only the people that you're exposed to and are exposed to you, but also for the world, man. We with big wealth comes big responsibility.
Sure.
And I think we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I don't want to be the super rich guy on my deathbed by 60 because I didn't have my health. Yeah, I agree 100%. Wealth means a lot of things. It's how you have your relationships, how you have your fitness. There's a lot of things that encompass wealth, and it's definitely not just money.
How do you manage a team effectively? I think managing teams starts with good leadership, right? I think you have to take that organizational chart and flip it upside down and understand that you are truly there to serve them and help them reach their goals and help them accomplish everything that they want to accomplish inside of your organization. And through doing that, there's some tools that we have But it's all about accountability. We have this little triangle. We call it the clarity triangle. And on the bottom right is clarity. Bottom left is clarity. Bottom right is accountability. And at the top, you'll always get results. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, right? It's a very simple thing. But at the end of the day, if you can coordinate action to reach a desired end state that is sustainable over time, you're doing a good job, right? And there's a lot that's baked into that, but I believe it really all starts with that clarity triangle with communication. You have to be an effective communicator. You have to be able to effectively point to the spot on the map and then be able to communicate, this is how we will get there. And if you can do that with many other things baked into it, I think you can be a pretty effective manager.
So the question is, who would win an arm wrestling match? And I can tell you, if you go in the weight rooms in the morning, every lift, I outlift him. He may have bigger arms and have all these veins popping out, all these muscles everywhere, but it's just for show. It's just for show. We all know who can lift more. I would whoop his butt in the arm wrestling match. We can do it right now.
We can do it right now. I guess you'll just have to find out.